15 years ahead and keep calm and carry on, for the weird British term.
a lot of reframing. And if I have an argument with my wife, it's always the same thing. I've said something, I want to know a little bit more about it, and we're talking about, two people are fighting and we're commenting on it, and she doesn't want me to take a side. And I go like, I'm not taking a side. That's the problem. People don't want you to be objective.
Right.
I found myself clever about elections, and found myself in 10 minutes being called both a flaming liberal and one of them awful conservative.
Sure.
By two different people. Literally, I think there was one post between them on my Facebook feed. And it was because I said just some objective truth about it, which I really didn't care about their outcome. I was just saying, guys, you're closer together than you think. That was, that's my attitude. And I stopped doing that. And in fact, that was 12 weeks before the 2012 election. It was actually the week of the Benghazi thing.
Okay.
And that might have been one of the things I was commenting on. And I actually posted, if anybody catches me talking about politics for the next 12 weeks as part of my 12-step program, I need you to slap me. And I'm just going to stop talking about it. And so sometimes you have to catch yourself like that. But yeah, reframing is when I hear somebody passionately talking about something, I look at, okay, what is their point of view? And I think that is a communication thing I learned long ago. If I'm going to write copy to get you to persuade you to buy a product, I've got to think like you're thinking. I don't think like, what would be best for me selling you this product? It's got to be, how does your life better if I sell you this product? And, you call that some NLP reframing, I don't know, psycho, whatever, whatever it comes from. It just means that I try to look at everything from somebody else's point of view. And, if my wife would be quick to point out, I screw that up all the time. The other is I decided to be happy. I don't remember exactly when. I do remember it happening, of having the thought process of, wait a minute, there is a space between action and reaction. That time when something happens to us and we decide what we're going to do next. You see a small child cry, and sometimes there'll be a gap between whatever, they got a boo-boo, they fell down, they bumped into something, and then they kind of look around bewildered and then decide to cry, or react. Decide might be a little bit much in the infant thing, but animals, if they get hurt, are going to do certain things. Adult humans have the capacity to stop, decide how they're going to react to something. And I have focused on that since, like I said, sometime in my 20s. I just made the decision that, so it's about going on 40 years now. I decided I was always going to be happy. And it didn't matter what happened. So life's threw me a bunch of curves. Not everything went as planned, but, go to work thinking I'm top of the world and get fired. And so when those things happen, family problems, health things, people have died, I just go ahead and say, well, that's new information. We've got to move on. It's not that I'm callous and don't care about the things. It's that I take the time to say, okay, that really hurts. I mean, my mom's been gone like 35 years now. I miss her every day. But, I don't plan my life around the fact that my mother died young. It's just, fortunately she died when I was 30. She didn't die when I was a little kid. And I know those things have impact, but forget what they say about it was your childhood. It's like sooner or later, you're going to be able to get past that. I still remember things that happened as a child, and maybe if it had been different, my life would have been different, but who cares? I can't do anything about that. And I'm not going to tell you guys about that unless it's an interesting story. And then I just move on. So everything is data. Emotions can be controlled. And I don't mean stuff it down in and don't feel it. I mean just like react as if you have the ability to withstand anything. And so I went completely broke at one time. And, and what I learned from that was that I can go home tonight and the house is burned down and I just have a new story to tell. It's not a story I want to tell, but I know I can survive that. I've done that. Well, not literally the house burning down, but, worse. Yeah. I lost it slowly to a bank. And, the financial crisis was a big old mess, and I studied the causes. I was fascinated by what happened and how we think we have control of the money and the economy and things like that. We just don't. Ask yourself why the exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar varies. I mean, we might as well all be the same big happy family with Canada. And how is it that we need to have money that's at different values and that fluctuates at all? It fluctuates even more with Japan. Again, stable economy. We don't see it every day. And and then when you get that kind of a focus and you look at trade wars and, other things happening, you go like, what's the real big picture about what's going on? Yeah, it's going to hurt people in the short run, and that's horrible. And, I hate to hear about things. There's emotional triggers. We just had one where we saw a family was, a bunch of them were shot and include little children. And, I found my wife crying when she saw the news about that. I'm going like, usually you are like me, you just, take it in and go on. It was because she identified with the family, and it got her quite upset about, we've got to do something about this. And it turns out there was a lot more to the story than just what we were able to find out first. And the TV was lying to us again. And, it wasn't lying about the murders, the awesome tragedy, but, so we still care about that, but we find out, we put that in context, it's a little bit something different. And think about how much we get. One toddler drops into a well and we go crazy with the media and whatnot. And then there's genocide of wiping out 1,000 people in a foreign country. And we kind of are too busy to read that piece in the news. There are big macro things happening in the world. The good news is, it is good news. There is so much that technology is bringing us with abundance that food is cheaper than it ever has been for most people available. Here in Las Vegas, I remember asking, so I didn't know, so I asked my wife, hey, where somebody can go if they are having trouble eating? She says, nobody's having trouble eating in Vegas. Walk up to any uniformed person and say, where do I get the food? And they're going to send you, there's a program that has surplus of food to feed people. They just don't know about it. And that's the thing that I care about. I feel like, gosh, it's horrible that somebody is there struggling, sleeping on the park bench, whatever it is, and has problems. How can I help them? I know that handing them $20 could get them a meal right now, but how can I really help them? Right. And in fact, we wrote a whole book on it. It's called Billions Rising. It's about the 2.7 billion people that were living on less than a couple of dollars a day. And they need help. They don't need handouts. It turns out the handouts don't help. But yeah, if they're starving, you feed them. Right. That's a no-brainer. Tomorrow you start talking about what can we do about the situations you do, and it turns out most people in that situation care about their families, want to work, want to do well. They, I'm trying not to use the cliche, but please excuse me, I'm going to say welfare mom. They're not welfare moms in rural India. It's not just sitting there waiting for the handout. And the stigma of the welfare mom, the reason why we try not to use that term is that people are individuals. They have individual needs and wants and problems and situations that you can help them with. And it turns out that most people want a hand up instead of a handout. Right. And if you give them, a little bit of information, a path to doing something right, fascinating. So Billions Rising is hundreds of stories of people we interviewed, talked to, and programs that are working to be positive. There are less people in everything in the under $10 a day. The chart on that just keeps getting more and more positive. There is less percentage of the world in poverty now than ever. Since the population's grown quickly, is poverty still big? It's still a lot of people. Getting them food and water, very important. And we don't have to worry about running out of stuff to do with, are we going to be employed or not? No, there's plenty to do. Mm-hmm. We're going to fix it so that electricity is near free or near free. And food is abundant. We already produce more calories than the world needs to get fat. But distribution's some problem. And, everybody has a place to stay, and, healthcare when they need it, whatever, we'll figure out something. And the idea that a job is going to save you is just old. It never really worked. We were lied to.
Right.
You're not going to get, I was told when I was in college that if I got a good job and stayed there, I need to look at retirement and blah, blah, blah. And one of the financial planning tricks they were telling us is save a little bit, because only 5% of the population retires self-sufficient. And, it took me until I was wiped out a decade ago to look at it and say, wait a minute, you can't count on any of this. And besides, 95% of the population, when they figured they had it all right to teach us this, didn't become self-sufficient. How about them? What are we? Their lives are better today than they were 100 years ago. But what can we do to work on that so that, retirement is just a dirty word Warren thinks it is. Mm-hmm. I plan on, having a couple more careers while I'm still here, being immortal until I die, mm-hmm. And find something, do some good. And to me, the biggest problem facing us in the future is figuring out what we're going to do with all the idle time when we've been brainwashed into thinking some job is going to take up a lot of our life. Mm-hmm. If you could work 10 hours a week or no hours a week on the current job, and you still had all the income and the same amenities of life is bringing you, what would you do? And when you get past, I'll take a vacation and see the world, and maybe there's this charity I want to help, you'll run out of things to do really fast. And so that's where we find out, how can we help humanity? Well, for the foreseeable future, we're going to need to go help teach and train and bring what we've learned to people that are just not getting it. But I don't know, that could come very fast, because the prediction I saw last night was we're only about 5 to 10 years away from having, and here's a prediction when I don't make predictions, but 5 to 10 years from having virtually everybody on the planet connected. Mm-hmm. It's still, bring another couple billion minds online to help solve the world's problem. What first turned me on about caring about people in other countries and that sort of thing, because I was a normal American, yeah, okay, so what? I felt, I was well read. I knew what was going on in places, but didn't really empathize with them. And I saw a 13-year-old girl in some village in Africa. Mm. It was just a picture and a story. She would spend 8 hours a day carrying water for the family. And it just hit me. I had at the time 13 and 14-year-old daughters, and it just hit me that there's no reason to think that girl isn't just as capable or nearly as capable as my wonderful daughter. No one beats them, but nearly as smart. And what could they be doing if she didn't waste her life? And then I was quickly corrected. She's not wasting her life. She's serving her family. Mm-hmm. So don't call it wasted life. But what could she do if there was a water tap in the home? And that, that can change a lot of things. And all these technologies, that's what keeps me going. I've mentioned it once before, but really, if you ask me, about being a futurist or the enigma thing, I really should be saying I'm a guy that wants to get rid of friction.
Yeah.
Because there's so much abundance out there. We just need